Hi, I'm Adam Jahns from the Chicago Sun-Times, and I'm joined here by Mark Potash. Mark, today was Media Day here in New York, and we saw some famous Spanish reporters. We saw a guy dressed like Benjamin Franklin. Pick Boy was here, some guy dressed like Waldo. Media Days can be kind of a circus, but there were some things that came out of that. What was your impressions from Media Day today?
Well, it very much was the circus that it always has been and is known for. That was Alexander Hamilton, by the way, who was there. There were also three little old ladies from the Queen Latifah show who got a hug from Russell Wilson.
And Manning, I think.
I think it's always interesting to see how the players handle it. And I think now the players know that they've really got to be on their best behavior. I give particular kudos to Terrence Knighton, the defensive tackle for the Broncos, just for the way he explained for about 6 times, and literally 6 times, how he got the name pot roast in the same interview. And was really good-natured about everything. And I thought Russell Wilson really handled things well. You know, he's such a good guy. He's a good guy to talk to. He really thinks about what he says, and he's got a good idea of who he is and why he's here. And I just was really impressed by the way he handled it.
I was impressed by Richard Sherman. Of course, there was a media horde there waiting for him. Marshawn Lynch did his 6 minutes interview, which is okay. He had some quote-worthy things to say. But the distraction factor, it's always going to be a storyline here at the Super Bowl, especially here in New York. Which team do you think could be impacted the most by all the hubbub that's going on around here?
Well, normally you'd say the Seahawks because they just have so few people who've been in the Super Bowl. But I think they've reached a point now where these teams really are conditioned to withstand the 2 weeks and to play a good game. We've seen some pretty good Super Bowls lately, and I think it's a sign that teams are really getting used to the whole Super Bowl aura. And these two coaches are really good at kind of conditioning their teams for this. So I don't think it's really going to be as much a factor as I thought it would be earlier. So I really think it's going to be the Super Bowl we all expect.
All right, and finally, we have to talk about Brian Urlacher. You and I both sat down for him with the Fox Sports availability. Seems still to be pretty sour with the Bears organization. Said he'd be indifferent right now about having a Brian Urlacher today at Soldier Field. He thought the defense, had problems with injuries. He loved what they did offensively. I still think he likes McCown over Cutler. What do you make of our conversation with Brian today?
Well, the fracture that existed when he left the organization is still there, but it'll be repaired, and he'll get a statue, and he'll have his day. Probably won't get his uniform number retired, but because they just can't do anymore. But I mean, he'll have his day. Things will eventually heal. He looks great. I'll tell you, he looks like he could have led the Bears in tackles this year. That's how good he looks. And the other thing is, he's really good or getting good at what he does. And I'm very surprised. I thought he would ride off into the sunset and never be heard from again. I thought he really didn't want to be a part of football. But that was the interesting thing, how much he enjoys being a part of it. I don't know if people see him on Fox Sports, how many Bears fans do. But he's actually pretty good at it. And the best thing is, I guess he's enjoying it. He's enjoying his retirement. So it's always good. He gave Bears fans a lot of thrills. He certainly deserves it.
I will say this. He said the Bears would be stupid to say goodbye to Charles Tillman. All right, well, that wraps it up here at New York for another day here at the Super Bowl. Stay with SunTimes.com for all our Super Bowl coverage.